Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Video Clips, which is sponsored by Wellness Forum Health, the Wellness Forum Institute, and Make Americans Free Again. Currently taking applications to start a food over medicine club. The next groups of clubs will start in September and/or a Make Americans Free Again tribe. We're building an informed society, and this means we need local groups who are gathered together who create a network, a huge network, a very powerful network filled with millions and millions and millions of people of like mind on particular issues like medical freedom and things of that nature. So if you're interested in those things, let me know. Remember, 2025 membership drive is on. If you've never been a member, we will give you a gift certificate equal to the dues that you invest. And then you can invest that gift certificate in the Food Over Medicine Retreat, the Winner's Circle, my behavior change course, the autoimmune disease boot camp, or the research boot camp coming up. So if you've always wanted to know how to find stuff out, read studies and know what they mean and sort out good from bad information, July 18th and 19th is your chance to do it. One of the things that I'm going to do this time that's a little bit different is that we will actually research together during the class the types of topics that some of the participants want to research. So it'll be a very interactive rather than just lecture type of program. And then save the dates. We have another free boot camp coming up. This one's for health professionals, 9 hours of education for free on July 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. More details soon, but mark your calendar for those nights because we're going to be doing live interactive health professional training. So if you're a dietitian, a nurse practitioner, medical doctor, whatever it is that you're doing, acupuncturist, any modality, you're welcome to participate. And we're going to show you a lot of wonderful ways in which you can help people who have cancer, who have serious autoimmune diseases, etc. And also some business building tips and all kinds of things that I think that people need to learn. We had very good attendance at this last year. It was a super boot camp. Really looking forward to it again. And if you participated, I promise there will be different stuff we'll talk about. I try not to repeat the same thing over and over again so that those of you who regularly participate in our programming are not bored. All right. So I have two news items to share. One is a bit of a celebration, and the other is a bit of a let's not get too excited because there's more work to do kind of thing. So let's start with the first one. I'm sure you've heard. After last week's disastrous Make Americans Healthy Again report, RFK redeemed himself and his agency in a spectacular way when he dismissed all 17 members of the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices. So he wrote a piece that appeared in the Wall Street Journal. I'm going to share a couple of excerpts from it, and I have some commentary about it, supplemental commentary and knowledge to share with you. So, and I shortened it up a little bit because you can read the whole thing yourself online. You don't need me to do that for you. But he writes, vaccines have become a divisive issue in American politics, but there's one thing all parties can agree on. The U.S. faces a crisis of public trust. Some would try to explain this away by blaming misinformation or anti-science attitudes. To do so, however, ignores a history of conflicts of interest, persecution of dissidents, a lack of curiosity, and skewed science that has plagued the vaccine regulatory apparatus for decades. That's why, under my direction, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services is putting the restoration of public trust above any pro or anti-vaccine agenda. The public must know that unbiased science guides the recommendations from our health agencies. Today, we're taking a bold step in restoring public trust by totally reconstituting the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices, or ACEP. What he did was dismiss all 17 members. They're all gone. And he's going to start from scratch to assemble a new committee. He goes on to write about the fact that the committee has been plagued with conflicts of interest. It has just rubber stamped every vaccine. It's never recommended against a vaccine, even when those vaccines that they approved were later withdrawn for safety reasons. It has shown no real scrutiny toward vaccines for babies or pregnant women. And he says, and this is a big concern, that the groups that inform ACIP meet behind closed doors, and so there's no public knowledge about this. And I'm sure one of the reasons they meet behind closed doors is they know that the public would be apoplectic and angry if they saw what really went on. RFK goes on to write about the Congress issued a report about ASIP, and in the year 2000, this isn't new, it's just been allowed to go on for decades, and also an advisory committee under the FDA, and they found that the conflict of interest rules were never enforced. In fact, 4 out of 8 ACIP members who voted in 1997 on guidelines for the Rotoshield vaccine, which was subsequently withdrawn because of severe adverse events, and this was being given to babies, had financial ties to pharmaceutical companies developing other rotavirus vaccines. Now, one thing I can share with you, I covered that story back when it happened. One of the people who was conflicted on the ACIP committee was Paul Offit at Children's Hospital, Philadelphia. And by the way, you may not know this, his conflicts are so incredibly huge that it would take the rest of the week to describe them all to you. His salary is paid by vaccine makers, and he owned an interest in a rotavirus vaccine that during the time when he voted for this vaccine that was withdrawn, he owned an interest in a rotavirus vaccine that was later approved after that one was withdrawn, and which generated $182 million in royalties. And he got some of that. I don't know exactly how much, but it's just unbelievable that somebody this conflicted could be involved in all of this decision making. His salary at Children's Hospital Philadelphia is paid by vaccine makers. He was paid to write a book to reassure parents about vaccines. He was paid a whole lot of money by vaccine makers. I mean, he just makes my skin crawl, mainly because he's so conflicted and because he's never had to face making comments about his conflicts, because the media goes along with it, because the drug companies and vaccine makers buy so much advertising. And it just has been, you just couldn't talk about this stuff. I mean, one good thing about RFK is he's allowing us to be able to talk about this stuff finally. So anyway, the RFK says in his piece in the Wall Street Journal, is by the way, is where this is, that 97% of the committee members on both of these committees failed to complete their conflict of interest forms and had omissions, 97%, and the CDC did nothing about it. So anyway, he goes on to talk about, most of the committee's members are getting money from drug and vaccine makers. The new members will not be working for vaccine makers. They will be independent. And I think that's what we really want. And I'm sure we're not going to love every decision they come up with, but at least we're going to have some independent thinking going on. He finishes by saying a clean sweep is needed to reestablish public confidence in vaccine science. In the 1960s, the world sought guidance from America's health regulators, who had a reputation for integrity, scientific impartiality, and zealous defense of patient welfare. Public trust has since collapsed, and that's so true, and we will earn it back. So all in all, this is really great news, probably the best thing that's happened since he got appointed to this position. One thing that lets me know it's the best thing that has happened is watching congressmen and congresswomen who are so conflicted because they get so much money from drug and vaccines makers. They're apoplectic. And some of them are thinking that they're going to have a committee meeting to impeach RFK. And so when that kind of backlash is happening, he's getting close to the target, or whoever they're going after is getting close to the target. So that's all good. And then I said at the beginning, I wanted to talk about some things that mitigate our excitement over this. Here's why we need to keep going. Assisted outpatient treatment, or AOT, is a legal strategy that allows judges to mandate psychiatric treatment for people who have serious mental illnesses. It's been in the news for the last few weeks because Allegheny County in Pennsylvania and the Pittsburgh area is considering it now. Of course, it's supposed to be for the greater good, fewer hospitalizations and community safety. If you notice how often they use safety, everything needs to be for safety. They're going to kill us by trying to keep us safe, Some people are organizing protests. I mean, there's growing discontent with this kind of stuff, and more people are seeing that medicine is being used to control people. So it's not a done deal, but long-term involuntary commitment is permitted in all 50 states and the District of Columbia, even without giving judges more discretion as, for what this movement or motion or whatever it is would provide. For the record, for the last 30 years, almost 30 years, we've been in business. We've been contacted by families concerning college students who've been committed to a psych hospital with all contact cut off when they visited a counselor in the mental health section for, after a death in the family or something like that, and they end up committed to an institution. Family members placed in psych facilities with no outside contact due to a drug overdose, or even just a doctor with a hospitalized patient saying, I'm worried about the mental health of this patient. I'm transferring them to a psych hospital, and other terrible stories. I mean, once committed, by the way, it is very difficult to get people out of psych hospitals, and often they have to continue to agree. They have to agree to continue to take their drugs in order to remain free. One really egregious case, I learned a lot about the Medicaid system. Many years ago, we had a member who had a family member who paid for her to join Wellness Forum because this family member thought that she was not getting very good care from Medicaid, and that was true. But anyway, she was taking psych drugs, and she had voiced her discontent with taking those drugs on numerous occasions with her psychiatrist, who told her in no uncertain terms, if I detect that you're not taking your psych drugs, not I will get your Medicaid coverage ended, and I will also make sure that your housing allowance and your SNAP money for groceries will be discontinued too. That's how vicious these people are. Can you imagine having your housing and your food contingent upon taking psych drugs? In the meantime, this woman was driving herself back and forth to Wellness Forum, and she had a part-time job, and she definitely needed some help with her health. But the idea of somebody hanging this over her head was just ludicrous. And then, of course, all over the country, egregious things going on. 5 states offer no religious exemptions or non-medical exemptions for children to go to school for vaccines. And even when they allow medical exemptions, they often turn them down. Some of you've heard me talk about a case in New York. Our attorney in New York represents a family where a pediatrician acknowledged that a patient had been injured by vaccines. He administered the vaccine, wrote a medical exemption. The public health department in New York turned it down, and the child was not admitted to school. The pediatrician didn't want to give any more vaccines. The family didn't want the child to receive any more vaccines. And so the mother had to quit her job and stay home with this child. He's now too big for her to handle. And the family doesn't know what they're going to do because they're withholding services for this child because of the family's refusal to give him more shots. We have to continue to work at this and do something about this, because it's all well and good to say, well, I don't have a vaccine injured kid, or I don't have any children at home anymore. I don't have to worry about it. We all have to worry about it because what affects one affects us all. And it's just a matter of time. That slippery slope toward more and more and more public health control. We saw it with COVID. And if we don't stay diligent and fight this stuff, we'll have more of it. Ohio's governor vetoed a provision in a bill that would allow doctors to disagree with public health officials. I mean, I still can't believe it. I don't like our governor. I don't want to say what I think he is. But it's just beyond comprehension where you would take out of a bill the right for doctors to speak out. They have First Amendment rights against public health, and he took it out of the bill. He vetoed it, line item veto. And then CMS can still mandate flu vaccines and any other shot they want as a condition for medical institutions to get reimbursement. So healthcare workers are not at all out of the woods. Some of the COVID mandates are going away, but it's not over yet. It just isn't. So, we celebrate the wins, but we should not delude ourselves into thinking that we're home free. The medical and public health cabal are well entrenched. They have had decades to shore up their power. And as you might imagine, I mean, just common sense tells you they're not going to give it up easily. They like this power. We saw how much they enjoyed it during COVID while they were taking National Guard onto the beaches to go after people who weren't wearing their mask, and I mean, just terrible, egregious things. So we know what they're capable of, and we know that we haven't dismantled the system that lets them do some of these egregious things. So I'm back to start a Make Americans Free Again tribe. Donate money. I mean, as you might imagine, donations are down because people don't want to think about this anymore. We have to think about this some more. We don't have the option, those of us who are awake, to just opt out and forget about it. We have to really continue to fight at it. Some days I don't want to do it too, but we have to. And if we don't, we're going to suffer the consequences, just like we did in 2020. My mother used to have a saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So they really did blindside us in 2020. But now we know. So since we know, we have some responsibility to do something about it. I'm asking you to help me do that. All right, that's it for today. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think would enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you next week with more news. Thank you so much for watching.